everybody, welcome to my channel, Cloudy Nook Stitches. My name is Lori, and I'm so glad you're here to hang out with me to talk about cross stitch, and I have some knitting this time to talk about. So I'm really excited to show you the new pattern I'm working on for knitting. So what have I been up to? It was about a week and a half ago. I traveled to Arizona. Right now I live in California, and I'm in the process of relocating to Arizona. My husband and I purchased my parents' home after they passed away a few years ago. So we travel here and hang out here for about a month. And right now we're still trying to do some remodeling. One of them is, as you can see behind me, my parents had a manufactured home. It was built back in the 80s with all the wood paneling. So it's dark in here, and my style, to me, the wood paneling is kind of outdated. So it was yesterday we had a contractor come by to do some measurements and give us a bid about putting drywall up over the panel walls. So we got a lot of things to do here. So before we move, one of the major things we would like to have done is to cover up the wood paneling throughout most of the house before we actually move here. So I'll keep you guys all up to date on that. So I'm hanging out in Arizona. The home is located in Lake Havasu, so I get to look at the lake, and my porch faces west, and I get these amazing sunsets in the evenings. So the sunset you saw at the beginning of the video is a picture that I took of one of the sunsets, and then I'll end the video showing you a couple more beautiful sunsets. And of course, I love the sunsets when there's clouds up there in the sky. All right, guys, let's get right into talking all about cross stitch. First up is I have a finished object. It is called the Little Penguin, and it was designed by Stitch is Simo. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. I purchased a PDF document on Etsy. I use 14 count Aida from my stash, and I used the called for DMC fab thread. So here is my finished object. There he is. I'm so glad he's done. Now, one of my goals that I was sharing with you earlier this year was to make little pillows for each month to represent that month. So I'm going to turn this into the pillow for January. So there is my finished object. It's always exciting to get on FlossTube and actually get to show you a finished object or a FFO. Now let's talk about the new starts. This month I started 3 new starts, and back in January I started 8. And one of my yearly goals is to do 25 in 2025 new starts. So far I've started a total of 11 new starts for this year. So the first one that I would like to share with you that I started this month, it is by Country Cottage Needleworks, and the pattern is called Let Love Bloom. So here's a picture of it. And this one I started on January 23rd. And this one I'm also going to make it into a little pillow to represent February. Now this pattern, I use 14 count Ada Mystic Gray. I did the called for DMC colors, and the designer was Nikki Lehman. So let me show you how far I've gotten on this. So since I haven't done, I think it's been 3 weeks since I put a video out. So I got a pretty big first start to show you guys. So I'm really been on this one because I want to get it done by the end of the month. So there it is. Let Love Bloom. And I think I picked this one because of the bunnies. I thought the bunnies were really cute. And I really like the color of fabric I'm using, the Mystic Gray. I love gray and pink together. So I think the colors are working out really well. My second new start is from Rosewood Manor called Hearts of the Kingdom. And it was designed by Karen, and I can't quite say her last name. So here's the designer's name right here. And here is the pattern. Now, when I saw this one, I was really drawn to it. And I think it had to do with all the pretty motifs of hearts in there. And just the colors of the red and pink together. So I'm stitching this on 14 count fiber on the whim. And the name of the color of the fabric was Morgan Net. And I'm doing the called for DMC threads for it. Oh, and I think another reason I really like this were those two little birds right there. So let me show you how far I've gotten on it. And there it is. I just love the individual motifs. I'm really starting to focus on finding patterns with the motifs on them because I feel like I have a sense of accomplishment when I finish one. So, yeah. Now, another thing I wanted to mention to you, I don't have a lot of project bags. So right now I have my 2 Valentine projects living in one bag until I get some more bags. And I didn't plan this, but it just happened to work out this way. So here is the one Valentine project, and it's in a purple hoop. And then my other Valentine project is in a pink hoop. All right, so I have those living in the same bag. So I put all the colors for the 2 projects on one ring, but I color coordinated them to match the hoops that I'm using. And I'm like, well, that was pretty clever. You know, I didn't think about it. It just kind of happened. And I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. So I don't know if you guys have 2 projects living in one bag. That's a way to distinguish what threads go to what project, or, you know, you could always use the same color floss drops and just put them all in numeric order. But I thought that was pretty cool that it worked out that way. Now, my last new start, I purchased my very first project bag on Etsy, and I purchased it on tag quilt art. So let me show it to you. And yeah, it came with a cute little zipper pull. And here's the back. I thought it was really pretty. And then the tag on it is Garden Grove Stitchery. And there's the tag. Now, this new start, I heard about it. I'll put the name of the channel, the FlossTube channel that I heard about it up here. She was talking about a stitch along that was going on over on a Facebook page called Across the Pond. And that was also one of my 2025 goals, is to sign up to a couple different stitch alongs. And when I saw the pattern for this one, I just fell in love with it. So let me show you the pattern. It is called One Stitch at a Time by La Di Da. And this is the first time I bought a pattern from La Di Da. And it says, beautiful things come together one stitch at a time. So I went over to Facebook and I joined the group, and I made a couple posts on there saying thank you for letting me join, and showed them a picture of my progress. So it's kind of fun to be part of a Facebook group where everybody is stitching on the same thing to help motivate you to stay on track. So let me show you how far I've gotten on it. Now, this stitch along, it started, I think, at the beginning of January. So I'm about a month behind, but there is no stress. You don't have to, get it done on the time that they're putting it on for. I think they were saying the stitch along is going to go for, I think they said 10 or 12 months. So here's my progress on it. And then this little needle minder was a free gift that I got when I purchased that project bag. And I think this is the first time I'm stitching something, stitching wording. So, this fabric I bought on the website 123 Stitch, and it was a 16 count wheat Ada that I purchased. And this time around, since I've heard about the stitch along when I was here in Arizona, I don't have all my stash with me of thread and stuff. So I just went on to 123 Stitch and I just kitted it up there. And then they shipped it here to me so I could kit it up and get it started right away. And then I'm using all the called for DMC. Now in the month of February for WIPCO, number 7 and 8 were called. So I've been working on my 2 WIPCO projects. The whips that I put on my WIPCO board were pretty much the very first 9 projects that I started working on. So I just doubled them up on my WIPCO board. So this month, the hummingbird one was called for the second time. And this is, the project is called folk art hummingbird. It was designed by Sydney Lee Stitchery. I'm using 14 count Aida and the DMC, called for DMC threads. So here's how far I've gotten. Now, from what I've mentioned in my past videos, I'm making this one in honor of my mom, who passed away back in 2018. She loved hummingbirds, so you can see his little tummy right there. So I'm really getting a good start on it. So I'm really glad this one went on my WIPCO board. My plan for this project is to work on it once a month. My mom was born November 11th, so on the 11th of each month, I'll be working on it. So my goal for this one on WIPCO is to work on it for 8 days in the month. And so far, I think I've worked on it 5 days for February. The other project that I worked on for WIPCO, I first want to share a little bit of a haul. I bought some fabric from the Etsy shop called, what is their name? Cut Fabrics, because the project that got called on WIPCO is my camping project. So I need to, I really need, but I need to make a project bag to put my camping project in. So when I saw this fabric on Etsy, I just had to buy it. It's just adorable. So when I get back home in California, I'll definitely be making up a project bag. This project is called Camping Forest. It was designed by Stitch Vibes Emporium, and I purchased the pattern on Etsy. I'm stitching it on 14 count Aida in the color Silvery Moon, and I'm using the called for DMC threads for it. So here's how far I've gotten on it so far. And right here will be a tree. And I love to camp. My thoughts of when I would be stitching on this one, when it's not on my WIPCO board, is when I go camping. So every time I go camping, I'm planning on taking this project with me. Another thing I started doing, so it would give me an opportunity to touch on more of my projects, is temperature stitching. You pick 10 projects, you label them 0 through 9, and then you check the weather for the day. You could pick the low temperature, the current temperature, or the high, and you take that last digit. And so for an example, today I checked the weather and I think it was 53 degrees. So I took number 3 and went to see which project was labeled number 3, and then I stitch on it, and I usually just thread my needle one time and then stitch it up. Once in a while I might stitch a little more on it. So out of the 10 projects since last time I did FlossTube, I had 6 projects called. So the first one that I'll share with you is called the Great White Shark. It was designed by Happy Little Mouse, and I purchased the pattern on Etsy as a PDF. I'm stitching it on 14 count Aida black and the called for DMC threads. So here is how far I've gotten on my shark. So there he is. So that's only a portion of him. His head's gonna be over on this side. So, and then stitching on this black, oh gosh. It's, I notice it's getting a little easier the more stitches I have on here, but I really got to get close to that fabric. And then I have to share the project bag that it lives in. Now this one I sewed up, so I just love sharks. In a past FlossTube video I shared about the shark game that I would play with my grandsons when they were little. And another thing I do is I name my cars. So right now my car is called the Shark Mobile because it's a gray Hyundai, and the little antenna on the top, it looks like a shark fin to me. So I had to buy some shark stickers to put on it. So it'll be fun when I have the shark done. The next temp stitching that I worked on, it got called 4 times. It's called Frosty's Cozy Christmas. It was a mystery stitch along by Luminous Fiber Arts, and I started it on November 25th, 2024. And I think there were 3 separate clues. One was in November, 2 in December, but I wasn't able to get that stitch along done. So I'm really glad it's on my temp stitching so I could have the opportunity to work on it here and there, and hopefully I'll have it done by next Christmas. I'm stitching it on 16 count Aida, and I'm using the called for DMCs. And let me show you the cute little bag that it lives in. And I also made this project bag. And I was able to find some snowman fabric in my stash. And here is Frosty. And there he is. He's really got a cute little face there. So I hope he's done by Christmas. The other project that got called is called the House Season of the Year. It was designed by White Rose Snow Garden, and I purchased the pattern on Etsy as a PDF. I'm stitching it on 16 count Aida and milk chocolate, and I'm using the called for DMC thread. Now this project, they're individual months going from January to December. So let me show you the 2 months that I did complete. So there's October and November. So every time it's getting called, I'm working the other monthly boxes. I'm doing an outline. So once I get most of that outline done, when it gets called, like say all my outline was all done and it got called this month in February, then I would go to the month of February and then start stitching the design for that month. Now this one, I had high hopes that I would have it done by the end of this year, but I'm thinking I probably won't. So I'm hopefully it'll be done by the end of 2026. So that's a fun project to work on. I'm curious, is anybody else doing any kind of temp stitching or any other different activities or events to help you get motivated to work on a variety of projects? Let me know. I would love to know if there were other activities out there in FlossTube that I could maybe look into. I really get a kick out of waking up in the morning. I always do my temp stitching in the morning, and I go off the current temperature. So anyway, the next one got called Two Times, and it is the Desert Landscape #2. It was designed by Light Unicorn Designs, and I purchased this pattern as a PDF on Etsy too. I'm using 14 count Aida in vintage sand, and I'm using the called for DMC threads. So here's how far I've gotten on Desert Landscape. So it's kind of hard to see what's going on this one. I've said this in my other videos, but I kind of like doing confetti stitching. I'll pick one color and then I just do all that counting to make sure I get it placed correctly, and then do that triple double check with the other colors that are already on there. And so, yeah, this one will be fun. My plan for this is to definitely frame it. And since I'm moving to Arizona, I just love things that have anything to do with cactus and stuff. In fact, I have baby cactuses that I brought some of my collection here, and then I think I probably have a total of 50 baby cactuses, going from very small to a lot bigger. So I just like growing plants and stuff. So I guess it's one of my other hobbies. And this one is, I made this project bag, and I remember where I bought this fabric. This fabric I bought at Hobby Lobby for the front fabric, and then the back of it, I got it out of my stash. So my goal is to have a project bag that is handmade for each of my projects. Now, after talking to you about my temp stitching and my whipco and sharing my new stars, I still had other projects that I was working on, and I was trying to figure out how to organize those projects and when to work on them. I did have a Friday focus, the vintage sewing room project that I was working on the last couple months, but I left that in California. So while I'm here in Arizona, I don't have a Friday focus. So, and that's okay. I'll pick it up as a Friday focus when I get back home. So I came up with an idea. During the weekday, Monday through Friday, I'm going to be working on my winter projects along with the 2 Valentine new starts that I started up. And then on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday, my plan is to work on any stitch alongs that I'm doing. So let me share with you the winter projects. And the first one is called Quaint Quakers. It was designed by Quaint Rose Needle Arts, and I purchased the pattern as a PDF on Etsy. I'm using 14 count Aida fiber on a whim, the color Moonstone, and I'm using the called for DMC threads. And here's where I'm at so far. And I started the igloo. There's no penguins yet, but I can't wait to get to the penguins. And then here's the border. Now, I've noticed on other channels, some people will put the whole border in first. And I'm like, gosh, should I do that to verify that I have enough fabric before I put all this work in and then realize I don't have enough fabric? But when I do the math of what's the stitch count and then adding another 2 or 3 inches for your beyond the stitch count, I think I'm gonna be okay. So I guess we'll find out as I go. But now this one is mainly stitched in black, and then there'll be a hint of color. So right here in those flowers, you can see a little bit of color there. So I'm really having fun stitching mainly in black. And my other winter project that I'm working on is called the Majestic Moose. It was designed by Spell X Stitch, and I purchased this pattern also on Etsy as a PDF, and I'm using the called for DMC thread. I'm stitching it on 14 count Mystic Gray Aida. And this project and my penguin project both right now are living in one project bag. So I gotta make a project bag for that penguin project still. And here is how far I've gotten so far on my moose. There he is. Now this pattern has 2 different size moose on there. So I started this one off in the center of the fabric right next to the larger moose. So I'm glad I'm working on the big one first, because by the time I get to the smaller one, it'll go a lot quicker. So this one's fun. And then on the weekend, I'm working on the stitch alongs. The other stitch alongs that I'm working on, this is called Keeper of the Pins by Brenda Curvey. And here it is. Now this stitch along started up by Bluebird Paper and Thread and Kisa Creations and Contented Needleworker Kim, and they all have FlossTube channels. So they're the ones that I heard about the stitch along, and when they were talking about it, I just loved those patterns. So I'm like, oh, I gotta join that stitch along. Now this stitch along, I am stitching it on 28 count linen. The color is light mocha mushroom, and I'm using the called for threads in the pattern. The first one that I'm stitching, I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different designs, and the first one I'm stitching is the sewing bird. Now, I'm sorry the sewing bird is kind of cut off, but I did finish the bird, but the last couple weeks I've been working on the spool of thread. Now, this is my first time stitching on linen, so I didn't want to scare myself too bad, so I started off with the 28 count. So it's counting it is definitely different than Ada. I think right now I still kind of prefer stitching on Ada because it's a little easier for me to do the counting, especially if I do a lot of confetti stitching. I think with the linen, if I was doing confetti stitching, I'd get lost. So, but working a more small scale project that doesn't have a lot of confetti is working out really well for me. Now, the last stitch along that I'm working on, it was organized by FlossTuber Highway Stitcher, Colette Kingsley, and they're working on the pattern Matter in Hand and the designer of it is Jeanette Douglas Designs. Now, when I saw this one, I fell in love with it. I love to do any kind of stitching that has to do with the hobbies that I love doing. So this is has all the different languages of saying cross stitch. And then all those motifs of the scissors and spools of thread. I just love it. So let me show you how far I've gotten on this one. Now this is being stitched on 16 count Ada in vintage, and I'm using the called for DMC threads. So that's how far I've gotten on it so far. Wow, look at those colors. They're just so vibrant. I love the colors, and I really like the fabric that I'm stitching it on. So, yeah, really like that project. So, I think the last time I put a video out was 3 weeks ago. So I've been working on a fair amount of different projects, and I'm really glad. I want to be able to touch the projects that I'm working on a somewhat regular basis. So I think I'm doing okay so far. I'm happy with the progress that I've been working on. So anyway, thank you so much for hanging out with me and talking cross stitch. I forgot. We need to talk about knitting. Okay, knitting. I'm wearing my ranunculus top that I made. I shared this top in my last video, so I'm wearing it today. And after I got this one done, and I really got motivated because I shared with you guys that I was going to finish it, and I did. Then I thought, I want to start another knitting project. So let's share my knitting project next. The knitting project that I've been working on, I found the pattern on Ravelry website, and it's called the Luminous Summer. I can't say the designer's name. I'm so sorry, but I'll put it up right here. By her name, Knit Designs. And I am stitching this on Premier Cotton Fair yarn. So here's the yarn I'm using. The color of it is cocoa. It's a weight 2, 52% cotton, 48% acrylic. And the size needle, circular needle, I'm using is a size 5. And I needed to have the 16-inch needle, the 16-inch length needle to get the neckline stitched on first, since you're not stitching with a lot. And then once I started adding more stitches to the project, then I I switched circular needles to a 32-inch length needle. So this pattern is top down. I'm trying to figure out how to show this to you without it falling off my needles. I guess I'll just hold it like this. Okay, here we go. So there's how far I've gotten. So I'm working it top down. And I think there's going to be short rows in this pattern. I'll tell you as I go. I haven't done any, the only thing I've been working on so far, I cast it on, I did the neckline, I'm working my way down. And then I think the short rows are coming. So that's how far I've gotten so far. Now, another thing I wanted to show you, and I usually get these on Etsy, are these little stitch counts. And I don't know if you guys ever use them or not, but I love them. So you have 10 rings on there, and then you have this one stitch marker that you move along. And then this stitch marker will count the 10s, 20, 30s, and so on. And then you slip the ring on for, so right now I am on row, where am I? Trying to figure this out. Okay, so see this little, I know this is really hard to show you. Okay, this little guy here, that is counting how many 10s I've worked so far. So it's on the third ring. So I've worked 30, and then I think this one is on ring 38. It's on the 8th ring. So this accounts how many 10s. So 10, 20, 30. And then this is on ring number 8. So right now I'm working on row 38. And I hope I explained that correctly. But I love them. I don't forget to write down what row I am on a piece of paper. Every time I finish a row, I just move my stitch count, and I'm good to go. So I'm really excited about knitting again. In the past, I've shared that I've injured my left wrist, which I took like eight months off from knitting for it to start feeling better. So that's why I started doing the cross stitching again, because now I'm not putting too much stress on my left wrist. In the past, when I started knitting again back at the beginning of 2024, I was going crazy. I was probably stitching 6 hours a day. It was like a full-time job. That's all I wanted to do was knit. So now I put the brakes on, and I only stitch maybe an hour, and I don't even do that every day. So as this starts to grow, I will keep sharing it with you. So anyway, that is the end of my video for today. Thanks for hanging out with me. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for spending time with me again. And if this is your first time finding my channel, a special welcome to you. If you really liked what you saw on my channel, please subscribe and hit the like button. And I do read all my comments, and I would love to interact with each and every one of you to talk about our favorite hobbies of cross stitch and knitting. All right, as I promised at the beginning of the episode, I'm going to share a couple more beautiful sunsets that I took pictures of here where I live in Arizona. All right, bye for now until we meet again. And remember, go stitch up a storm. Bye.